In this video, I'm going to back up Exchange Online mailboxes using Metalogic's Essentials for Office 365. So in order to do this, firstly, I need to launch the application, then click on the Backup tab, and then over in the Backup group here, click either to Local Storage or to Cloud Storage. So the next thing I need to do is give the project a name. Project names appear in the Backup Navigator. And once you create a project, for example, an Exchange backup, and then set it to recur, so it recurs once a week, for example, each time the backup is run, it's grouped under that project. So I'm going to call this Exchange Backup. And then under the connection service here, I'm going to choose Office 365 mailboxes. So the next thing I need to do is enter a global admin user and connect. In order to back up mailboxes, you need to connect as a global administrator or it won't work correctly. So I click connect. And now we're connected. So next we need to choose which mailboxes we intend to back up. So we have two options here. One is to include all Office 365 mailboxes. And what that does is it creates a dynamic backup. So it backs up all of the mailboxes in the tenant. And then if, for example, in a month's time, there are an additional 3 users, they become included in a subsequent recurring backup. In 6 months' time, maybe there's 5 less, then it will back up and exclude those users. So this grows and shrinks with the tenant. You also have the option to specify users, so you can load them from a CSV by entering their email addresses in column A in a spreadsheet and saving it as a CSV, or click this button to select from Office 365. So I'm going to back up the mailboxes for Adele, Alex and Alan. So I click OK. It's going to prompt me to save this as a CSV, so I'm going to call this Exchange CSV and click Save. And now you see it says you've selected 3 mailboxes. So I'm just going to maximize this window to talk through the remaining options. So next are the mailbox folders you intend to have included in the backup. So by default, we've got calendar, contacts, inbox, and tasks, but we can choose as many as these as required. So I'm going to choose everything. Next are the backup options. So this determines what's backed up. And here it's based on a period of time. So we can say we only want to back up items more recent than 45 days or older than 45 days or more recent or older than a particular date, for example, the 1st of March. If I uncheck that box, it will simply back up everything in the mailboxes. Next, the retention policy. So this determines how long the backup will be kept before it's deleted by the tool. So you can specify to keep a full backup for perhaps 60 days and subsequent incremental for 14 days, or uncheck those and the backup won't be deleted automatically. Finally, the backup location. So there are essentially 4 locations we can back up to. So we can back up to the disk the tool is installed on. You can back up to a UNC path, so for example, a remote disk, and there are 2 cloud options: Amazon S3 and Microsoft Azure. If we go down the Azure route, just as an example, it's going to prompt us to enter a storage account and an account key. So in order to use this, you'll need to have an Azure tenant available to you. Within that tenant, create a blob storage account, and that will provision you with a name and a key. Enter those in there, and then you can back up to Microsoft Azure. So for today's example, I'm going to back up to my local disk. So the remaining options we have here are generate a script. This will generate a command line script so that you can run the backup job as part of a bigger script or run several at once. You also have the option to schedule. So you can schedule the backup job to run at a point in time other than immediately. Now, the first time you run a backup job, you can only schedule it to run once only. Once we've created the job and the project is created, we can then schedule it to run on a recurring basis. So for today, I'm just going to click Finish and run the job immediately. So once the job begins, you get a progress window like the one we're looking at now. And if I click on Details, we can see the details as each item is backed up. When the backup completes, we get a summary window. So here it shows 150 items processed successfully. And from here we can click to view the log. And this will show us the outcome of each of the backups. So we can choose to save this log. If I click Select All, Save as CSV, I can then open it in a spreadsheet and do some auditing post backup. You can also save as an XML. So on the right here, you'll see we have a new project for the Exchange backup. Now, if I open this, you'll see we've got a clock icon with the date and time the backup has run and the nature of the backup in brackets. If I expand that out, you can see we've got the mailboxes for each of the users we backed up. Now, before we look at the mailboxes, if I right click on the project and choose update, I can now set a recurring backup. So for example, I can specify that I want a full backup and click schedule, and now I can set this on a recurring basis, either daily, weekly or monthly, and this will create a task in Windows Task Scheduler that runs the backup on a regular basis. So the first thing I can do is right click on a message and choose open, and this will open in my Outlook. So there we can see there's a message from Adele's inbox. I can also right click and choose to restore this message, and that will restore it to her mailbox in Office 365. And I can also right click and choose copy, so I can then copy that message and paste it somewhere else in the tenant. So for example, I could paste it into this library here, confidential documents. I can also right click on the actual folder, the inbox, and restore that, or I can go up to her mailbox and choose to restore all the messages in all the folders. So that's how to back up and restore Exchange Online Mail using Metalogic's Essentials for Office 365.